Welcome, friends, to another edition of Wolff Responds. I want today to take a look at those horrible fires in the Los Angeles area here in the United States. And I want to talk about what they mean, what lesson we're going to draw, what improvement in the human condition we might be able to snatch from the tragedy and the loss that those fires represent. And I want to do that honoring the task of understanding by beginning with a criticism of what is going on as others make their usual efforts, which go nowhere. Let me start with the extraordinary outpouring of people who clearly care nothing about the fire, but see only the opportunity to indulge their ideological preferences. So we have Mr. Trump denouncing Governor Newsom. We have Democrats denouncing Republicans. And we have people who aren't even Democrats or Republicans getting in there on the blame game and the finger pointing, as if that would solve the problem. Everyone who's getting the finger pointed at them has had that happen before, but nothing happened to change the United States so it wouldn't have this kind of a disaster. And by the way, this fire is far worse than the fire over a century ago in San Francisco, or the famous Chicago fire, or the others. No. This is really a disaster among disasters. Blaming this one or that one is a fool's game. And that extends to blaming, let's see, the real estate industry, the realtors, the ones who make the money by getting you to buy a house where it's unsafe to do so, as the fire showed us. And I don't want to point the finger at the insurers who insure those houses and who are now not only going to take losses, but are going to shift the burden of those losses onto the taxpayer. And how do I know that? Because they always do that. I don't want to point the finger at them. They deserve a lot of blame, but they're not the reason we've got this problem, or that we've been unable to solve this problem in the fires and after the fires of the past. I'm not going to blame the home builders, the people who literally build the houses and are so eager to make money from doing it that they'll build a house anywhere, knowing they can walk away when it's done. And if a fire comes next week, next month, next year, not their concern. They're in the business of making money. And if they can get a commitment to build one over there on the side of that hill in the Pacific Palisades, they'll jump at the chance. And I don't want to blame the governmental officials who are subject to all the pressures that corporations put on them, not to tax the corporations, not to tax the rich. And those efforts, those pressures, those donations do the job. The government is always short of money. And so it doesn't hire as many inspectors as it could, as it should. It doesn't make sure the water is available and in the right way and in the right place. Sure, it doesn't. And the utility companies who run their electric wires through all the dried out brushland of California and have caused fires in the past and will cause them with their sparks in the future. Why weren't they inspected, controlled, regulated? Because they, like the corporations they are so close to use their political donations to make sure that they're not interfered with by laws and regulations and inspections. I'm not going to blame any of those. You've heard all that before. And I'm not even going to tackle the obvious big one, the failure of our system to deal with climate change, with the effect of wind shifts and temperature changes and pollution to affect a fire, to cause it, to move it, to spread it. Come on, we know. But we have powerful interests like the oil and gas companies who don't want any interference in what they do, and they make sure to buy the politicians to get their way. No, my approach is to learn the following lesson at our own peril if we don't. There is something worth blaming, not this or that particular, but the one thing they all have in common. They're all profit-making industries or companies or people affected by profit-driven companies. The realtors who bring the customer and plunk them down in the dangerous area. Are they evil people? No, they're caught up in a system. They can only be a successful realtor if they bring enough people to pay the bills. They're in the profit-making business. You know how I know? Because they say so. The companies that build the home where it is dangerous, they're in the business of profiting from building homes. They want to build lots of them. And we encourage them, don't we, in our system, to go and build as many as they can, not to worry about how long they'll be there. The fire is now creating a vast demand for new buildings to replace those that burnt down. And if history is much of a guide, they'll probably do it. Wow. The utility companies are profit maximizing by not worrying too much about where the wires go, by not constantly upgrading, by not taking the expensive steps to make it all safer. And they put the pressure on the government not to hold them back, not to inspect them too much, too often, too closely. Come on, we all know how this game goes. It's the profit-making system. That's the problem of this fire. That's why we don't have enough taxes to take care of ourselves. That's why we build where it's unsafe. That's why we fail to prepare, because it's costly, because it goes against profit maximization, which is what every businessman or woman learns in business school. That's how you succeed, if you make the most profit. And you know how you lose your career? If you don't make enough profit. And you can't excuse yourself, not in capitalism, by saying we have less profit because I took care of safety considerations. What? We better get another CEO to replace you. And every CEO, everyone, knows exactly what I'm saying. That's how you have people who really care about the climate, except in the decisions they make on the job, where that's too risky. Wow. Here's the conclusion. You want to stop horrible fires? You got to change the system. And by that, I mean change the way we organize the production in our society, how we produce the goods and services we depend on, including housing. obviously. That can't be done by prioritizing profit. We ought to be prioritizing safety, not saying it. All the corporations do that, but actually doing it, making the first priority feeding, clothing, and sheltering our people safely. If that makes profit, nice. If it doesn't, it shouldn't matter because it's not the priority anymore. But how can we get that in our society if we don't have it in our factories and offices and stores where adults spend most of their lives? Wow. We can't have capitalism, profit driven. We can't have a group of people at the top of every enterprise making all the decisions for the majority of us to live in or die from. The US Census tells us 3% of our people are employers, but they make all the key decisions. They're the ones who, in the end, have messed up the environment because they've made decisions that profit them and make the rest of us fundamentally insecure and unsafe. Capitalism is the problem, and getting beyond it, setting up offices, stores, and factories in which groups of workers, together with the communities where they're located, decide what's best to be built and how and where, so that safety comes before profits. It's the inescapable conclusion you ought to come to when you look at the fires in California. Otherwise, you'll join the people who are afraid to see the lesson and thereby assure that we will have more of these disasters in the months and years to come. If discussions like these strike you as valuable parts of our national debates, then please share this video with friends, neighbors, coworkers, family members. That's why we make them. And of course, it costs us money. And if you can contribute at all, it will help produce and disseminate more of them. On behalf of everyone in Democracy at Work, and here at the beginning of a new year, I want to thank you for your support.